What's going on, guys? Quick video answering one question that some of you asked me, and I started writing an answer, but it turns out that to be the very loaded question. I can't possibly answer it in a comment, right? So I decided just to quickly make some more content for you guys and then answering this question. So how about we jump into it? So this question comes from Sharkbeak, and it's a comment on my Node.js, spinning up a lightweight Postgres instance and work with it on Node.js, right? And basically the question says, hey, I currently have the same setup on my side project, and what do you think about having to call create table if not exist running on startup that creates the table and then start your application? Is this a good idea or bad idea? So just I'm rephrasing. What he has here is like, see, he has the application when it starts, it connects as a user, and the first thing it does, it creates the table if not exists. So there is like a command, special SQL command that says, hey, create if not exists, right? And then consume the work. So most of the cases, that's absolutely fine. And however, I'm a little bit of a, when it comes to these kind of DDL operations, I do not like to do them in the script. Sometimes I don't have a choice, but in this case, what I would do is I would make sure, first of all, that the user the database user in this case, consuming the table, that is doing DDMLs on the table, inserting, updating, deleting, is different than the user who owns the schema or owns the table. It's just a practice that I learned over the year. I like to have a different owner, right? And this way I assign specific permissions to the user doing the DML operation. So if the same user, and I'm going to tell you why in a second, right? If you do what you're doing right now, which is you spin up the application, and fairly, this is exactly what I did in the application, but that goes without saying that this is not production code, right? But what I say is, like, when you spin up the application and you immediately create a table, by default, you own the table. So you pretty much can do pretty much anything with it. And that's not a good idea, because if that application, you're going to start spin it up to be a web application, which will have a lot of other consumers, which are anonymous most of the time, they're going to use the identity of that user to do DML on that table, right? So that's inserts, whatever, if you support deletes or updates, that stuff, right? In that case, those users have full privileges on the table. So if someone managed to sneak in a SQL injection on you to drop the table, they will be able to drop it, because guess what? Yes, they are anonymous from the HTTP layer, but the moment that injection happened, XSS or whatever happened, and it reached your backend application, it can sneak into the database, right? And basically say, hey, select from where name is semicolon, drop table employees. And just like that, you lost your table, right? Because, and they can do that because they are here in the backend, they are logged in as your user, and you configured that. They are the owner of the user. So if they just sneak in, they can drop the table. Bad idea, right? So what I like to do is, so I would not recommend what you're doing in production. So that's the short answer. What I would do is I would create the schema using a completely different script, right? And I'm going to create it as a specific user. I don't know. I'm going to call it app schema, right? I'm going to create the employees table in this case. And then when I want to consume, I'm going to create a completely different user for the application. I'm going to call it app user. And that app user, I'm going to be even more hard ass. I'm going to create different database users and create different pools of connections, because you have to use pooling. I didn't use pooling in that video, but you have to, guys. I'm going to create a different pool of connections for each route of application. If the route is doing only reading, then I'm going to log in as a read-only user and give that user app read, for example, and give it read permission on that table. And if I am going through the route that is, I don't know, editing, then I'm going to do give it only update. I'm not going to give it drop privileges, because most of the time you're not going to drop a table in the web. So why do you give it a full permission, right? Just having the full permission is just really scary, right? To access it through the web. And I apologize, Sharkbeak, badass name, by the way. If you're not using this in a web application, you're completely doing it as a script that you have absolutely no users, whatever I'm saying does not make any difference, right? You can absolutely use your approach, right? If you want to you run your script to set up those scripts, then absolutely, by all means, do it, and do this, if not create. And this is actually a great idea, especially if you're running a huge script that does a bunch of stuff. You want to be able to make it idempotent, so you can run it over and over again and just, what do they call, additive, right? It just adds on top of each other. All right, guys, quick video. I wanted just to answer this question. Since it took me 7 minutes to answer, so that's by no means I could have answered that in a comment. So hope that makes sense, guys. I'm gonna see you in the next one. You guys stay awesome and ask me these great questions. Keep them coming, guys. Love you.